no three-pointer. Puts it up. It's good. It's from Duncan. Ginóbili to the basket. Puts it up. Banks it in. The Spurs win in double overtime.
We move to the second round of the NBA playoffs on a spectacular evening in Phoenix, Arizona. The U.S. Airways Center is filled to capacity as the 7th-seeded San Antonio Spurs take on the 3rd-seeded Phoenix Suns, with the backdrop of a lot of memorable games between these two teams. With Hall of Famer Doug Collins and our sideline reporter Marty Snyder, this is Kevin Harlan checking out now our Taco Bell starting lineups. Veterans fill the lineups, but Doug, you've got your eyes set on the 37-year-old defensive-minded Grant Hill of the Phoenix Suns.
Well, Kevin, he's going to be so important in this series like he was in the Portland series. Game 1 in that Portland series, Andre Miller, 31 points. Portland comes in and steals the home court. Grant Hill proceeds to guard him the last 5 games, hold him to 13 points a game, turn that series. He will start out tonight on Manu Ginóbili, and then he will guard later on Tony Parker. So he was going to have his hands full. And Kevin, you've heard me all the time when I talk about the San Antonio Spurs. There's Tony Parker. He's going to come off the bench now in the role, giving him that firepower that Ginóbili used to do. Tim Duncan in the post. But the guy who makes this team special, the Spurs, is Manu Ginóbili. That's who the Suns have to do a job on.
The San Antonio Spurs got here by taking care of Dallas 4-2. Phoenix Suns beat the Portland Trail Blazers in round 1. And here we go with our officials, Bennett Salvatore, Kenny Mauer, and Michael Smith. And Steve Nash begins it against Hill. And Stoudamire works inside on McGrady. McGrady did a very good job on Nowitzki in round 1.
Yeah, totally different matchup here with Stoudamire's speed and his power going to the basket. With Dirk, he played so much on the perimeter.
Nice with the miss. Stoudamire with the defense. Rebound was brought down by Grant Hill. And this is over Ginóbili. Hill puts the Suns on top 2-0.
Kevin, I thought the other night in Game 6, Grant Hill only had 1 basket in that game, and I thought he was the most important player on the floor. 12 rebounds, 3 blocks, the defensive job that he did the entire game. That's what they're going to need from him in this series.
Guys with a late close by Stoudamire and a rebound by Steve Nash, playing with a bad right hip. A hip impingement works on Hill with the left hand. He puts it up and in.
Well, good sign there by the Phoenix Suns. It looks like Nash was moving pretty well in that play. They're going to keep the pace of this game up. The Spurs want to push the ball, but they don't want to shoot quick jump shots.
Here's Hill, a screen by McGrady, and inside. How does San Antonio, Doug, want to play this game?
Well, they want to push the ball, but not look for quick jump shots. I mean, they want to push it. They want to run for layups. They want to run for quick post-ups, but they don't want to get into a quick jump shooting competition with the Phoenix Suns.
And it's Hill once again. On George Hill, Grant was spinning, McGrady was reaching in. George Hill, who emerged in that first round, picks up his first personal foul for the Spurs.
Steve Nash does such a wonderful job of that little hesitation dribble, and he sort of straightens you up a little bit on the defensive end, and then that little quick burst. Steve Nash is a lot quicker than he looks, Kevin. He's so efficient on the floor as we see Grant Hill knock down his first free throw.
So we see that poor Steve Nash, who is playing in playoff game number 109 in his career, has played so many, and he's not played an NBA final. And that is something he would like to change this year. He's played in a lot of good teams with this Suns ball club. But Doug, it always seems like San Antonio gets in the way.
Yeah, he is 0-6 if you saw that graphic against the Spurs. 4 here with the Suns, 2 with the Dallas Mavericks.
And here is Nash, who struggled in game 6 because of the hip, and Stoudamire left uncovered. And the rebound pulled down by Jefferson.
That's what they'd like to see more out of Richard Jefferson. More rebounding. Early in the year, he did not do a good job rebounding his position. This is going to be a carrying the ball on Richard Jefferson. Just a careless play. Absolutely nobody guarding him at all. Just a lapse in concentration.
Collins, a screen on Hill, opens the door for Nash. And so Doug Nash has gone to the rack 2 times.
Well, if you want to know what the defensive key is going to be in this series, it's who's going to be able to defend screen roll best, because both of these teams are going to run it about 70 times a game. Ginóbili's getting ready to run it here with Duncan.
There's a switch on defense, pick and roll. Ginóbili and Duncan, McGrady cleaning it up. And McGrady, who staggered during the season, gets the rebound and gives it off to Duncan. And Duncan kind of closed that Dallas series in a very quiet way, but he's heard from right there. Duncan watching Nash, and Steve goes again inside. side. He's got 3 layups in a row.
I think Steve Nash is feeling better after that hip impingement that bothered him in games 3 through 6 against the Blazers. He's had about 3 days rest. They really haven't done anything with him. He just rested, got off his feet, and he's off to a great start here tonight.
Now he's watching George Hill on the near side, approaching 9 minutes to play here in the first quarter. Ginobili. McDyess deflected by the active Nash and out of bounds in the shot clock at 8 points. Up. It was a turnover and a foul. And the foul goes on McDyess for the first time.
Now, Steve Nash, you see the reverse. Watch how he uses his body here. He uses the rim to shield himself so that Duncan cannot block that shot. Just a crafty player around the basket. Steve Nash uses both the right and left hands beautifully. Uses that backboard, the English, the kiss off the glass. A master of all those little floating shots.
Here comes Stoudamire, goes outside to Nash, working on Hill, slides by Jefferson, dug with ease. He's going inside. Usually it's the San Antonio guards that drive inside the lane, and Popovich has got to find some way to stop Nash from getting inside.
Yeah, he cannot like the start of this game. Steve Nash is having his way with George Hill, so let's see what happens when Popovich comes out of this timeout. 11 quick points by the Phoenix Suns. Steve Nash off to a great stop. 4 of 4. He has 8 of the 11 points.
And the Suns have started 5 of 7 with a 7-point lead early in the game. As we're back in Phoenix, time now for the Cold Hard Facts presented, Doug, by Coors Light.
Well, Kevin, tonight, what's at stake? The first game, the Sun psyche. Why do I say that? Because this is their nemesis. They have come in here twice when the Suns have had the home court advantage. One game one, the Suns have never recovered. So a lot of angst here in Phoenix in this game one. And for the Spurs, they've had 4 days rest. They should be sharp. The pace of the game, try to keep Phoenix to as many under 30 quarters as you have. And their wins, they had 6. In their losses, they did not have one 30-point fourth quarter. That screen roll defense that I talked about. And then the 2 X factors are going to be Jason Richardson, who had a brilliant series against Portland, and George Hill, who got off to a slow start here defensively, who was terrific against Dallas.
Neither team has made a change out of that break. Approaching 8 to play here in the first quarter with the Phoenix Suns going 5 of 7. Here is Hill on Hill. Grant working on George. They're getting close in shots, the Phoenix Suns.
We saw they changed the matchup there. They put Ginóbili over on Steve Nash to try to calm him down. He got off to such a great start.
Now Grant Hill watching Jefferson. Stoudamire's on McDyess. Jaren Collins is wrestling with Duncan. And Jaren Collins picks up the personal foul. Longtime starter with the Utah Jazz. Collins picks up his first for Phoenix.
And what Jaren Collins is trying to do, obviously front when he can, try to change his position. Do not let them throw the ball in the post easily to Duncan. If Collins gets a few fouls, it's no big deal. They'll come in with Channing Frye. And in fact, McGowan might come in with them early to try to change the matchup, maybe try to get Duncan to have to guard Stoudamire.
Spurs 2 of 7. There's Richardson, who was the star in the first series for the Suns against the Blazers.
How about this? He had 3 28-point or more games in the regular season, 79 games. He had 3 in the first playoff series. That's how hot he's been.
And a lot of threes, Doug. A ton of threes.
Yeah, he had, in that series, Kevin, he had 22 threes, and the Spurs had 25 as a team in their first-round series against Dallas.
How about that? Shot clock is at 6, and here is Ginóbili, and this is over Grant Hill. On the rebound by Amari Stoudamire, coming off a nice finish for that first round. Nash has the last 6 points for the Phoenix Suns, and you see Richardson drawing a double. Grant Hill with Ginóbili there. Collins. And the shot clock is down to 6. Turnover right there. That's the first for the Phoenix Suns, and Jefferson the other way. George Hill emerging in the first round with a drive and a foul called. Ooh, he got it low. And the wind knocked out him right there, and a shot to the face, as you can see. And the foul's going to go on Richardson, Doug, for the first time for the Phoenix Suns.
Well, I'll tell you how important George Hill was for the San Antonio Spurs in that first round. Kevin, you and I did game 4. The game where the Spurs went up 3-1 in that series. They were down 15 early in that game. George Hill had 29 points in that game. He had a couple huge threes, but the Spurs win that game with Duncan, Ginóbili, Parker going 9 for 34. Unheard of. But he and McDyess and Richard Jefferson had 53 combined in that game. So they really came to the front in a game at home. Dallas wins that game. They get the home court back. That series could have changed dramatically.
Collins is out. Fry is in. And Doug, we were told Fry was going to be an early entrant in this contest tonight.
Yeah, I just spoke about that a while ago in terms of now what they're hoping is that maybe Duncan now has to guard Stoudamire because they don't think Duncan will come out on the perimeter and play Channing Frye because he's going to be out behind that three-point line. So let's keep our eye, Kevin, on the matchup. Let's see who Duncan will guard now with Channing Frye in the game.
And Tony Parker has come in the game. Nash for three. Steve Nash has been incredible on the start tonight. 11 points, 5 of 5 from the field.
It's just what the doctor ordered for the Phoenix Suns. It's a great start and a huge game here tonight, and they are moving the ball beautifully. Nash has been terrific.
And the dice close in around Stoudamire. With under 7 to play here in the first quarter. The lead of the Suns has climbed as high as 9. Nash again, he's got the green light. Stoudamire around Jefferson. Corkscrews on McDice.
How about in the playoffs in the first round against Portland, the Suns averaged over 17 points a game on second shots. That's the most for any team in the NBA playoffs. That's a pretty amazing stat for the Suns, who really weren't a good rebounding team.
On the driving side by Tim Duncan. Stoudamire's right there. We have a loose ball foul. That's going to go on Tim Duncan of the San Antonio Spurs. And Duncan will pick up his first. So Hill will leave. Ginóbili is back in. Doug, a lot of times we're going to see Hill and Parker and Ginóbili on the floor at the same time.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because they want Nash to have to defend. So if they have those 3 guards on the lineup, he'll probably play George Hill, who really plays without the ball a little bit more than Parker and Ginóbili. It's going to be a turnover there on Steve Nash, who had some turnover problems, Kevin, after that hip started bothering him. A little push here along the way. A little shove there as he goes down.
A little playoff tap.
A little love tap. And that's game 1. Let's see what happens if it gets to game 7.
30% shooting for the San Antonio Spurs. On a Ginóbili coming off a 26-point game 6 against Dallas, and Duncan on the fly. Count it for 2. Oh no. He was going inside with an offensive foul. That was on Stoudamire. It's on Stoudamire, who thought maybe they were going to put it on Duncan.
See, Amari Stoudamire is slow in the rotation here. He's got to rotate up there quicker. And then he rotates over, and Tim Duncan does a nice job of sort of jumping sideways. And Tim Duncan in those first 3 games against Dallas was brilliant. He had 3 games where he had over 25 in all 3 of those games in the playoffs. The last time he had done that, ironically, was against the Phoenix Suns a few years earlier, but then he sort of limped in the last 3. I thought he got tired, and one game we had in game 4, he was only 1 of 9 and then played very few minutes in game 5. Did have a good game 6 when they were able to put the Dallas Mavericks away.
Nash is 5 of 6 and meets Tony Parker with a little screen there by Stoudamire, and that ball was kicked. What else did you take away from that Dallas-San Antonio series, Doug? A lot of things were kind of evident in that contest, and we talked about Hill. Anything else stand out about the way Popovich maneuvered his team?
Well, it was interesting because Dirk Nowitzki and Caron Butler were both above their season averages. All the other key guys were 19 points below their average. Here's Channing Frye, and he loves to shoot the 3 here at home. He's such a different shooter, and Greg Popovich told us before the game, all those screen rolls with Channing Frye, they were going to be switching. I think that was a matchup because he rolled out and had an easy jump shot in rhythm.
In the first series, you're right, Doug, 46% from the floor. On the road, he was 25%, so a big difference. Home and road performance. Ginóbili got a little screen from Duncan and pops in a deuce.
He is so difficult because he's one of those guys that just keeps you off balance. He can stop and start a herky-jerky kind of player, and here's Grant Hill in the lane coming off that screen. So if you're the Spurs right now, you've weathered a little bit of a storm. The Spurs, the Suns have gotten off to a great start, and you're only down 7.
7 minutes gone here in the first quarter. Ginóbili sneaks one inside to the twirling Tim Duncan. Goes in on Stoudamire. It's picked up by Grant Hill. 1 on 3. It's an offensive foul. Ginóbili took it. Hill picks up his first personal.
I think Grant would like to have that one back. He thought there was a little space there. Actually, it was about a 1-on-2 break here, and Ginóbili sits there, and Grant Hill just cannot split the gap, and he gets caught for that offensive foul.
The dice is gone, and Bonner will check in for the San Antonio Spurs. Parker and Jefferson. Duncan, Bonner, and Ginóbili. The San Antonio 5. A Bonner screen. They quickly double Manu. Outside Jefferson by Stoudamire. Hit by Fry, and a foul goes on the Phoenix Suns. There's 4.5 to play here in the first quarter. Fry will pick up the foul. Here's a look at the upcoming national TV schedule. TNT Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Atlanta, Orlando, Utah, Lakers. ESPN Thursday, Atlanta, Orlando, Game 2. And ABC on Saturday gives you the Lakers and Utah Game 3. Jefferson was slow to blend in with this San Antonio team. Looked a little bit more comfortable, Doug, in the postseason round 1 against Dallas.
Well, he had a big game in Game 2. When they broke through and stole the home court from Dallas. He had 19 in that game, 17 in the first half. He really calmed down over the last 3 or 4 games of that series, but I think he's picking and choosing when to shoot the 3 and when to drive the ball. Like in that possession there, early in the year, I think he would have shot the 3. That time he drove it and got fouled. You know, Bruce Bowen, you knew he was going to shoot that 3. It looks like that was off Jason Richardson's leg. I think there's a break here for the Phoenix Suns. But, you know, I think he's picking and choosing, you know, when to shoot that 3 and when to drive the ball to the basket now.
We just saw Grant Hill working his way to the locker room. We'll put Marty Snyder on that story. Dudley is in for the first time for the Suns. Nash and Parker. Screen by Fry. Ginóbili comes out on Richardson. Knocked away. That's a turnover for Phoenix, who initially led by 9. Now the lead down to 6, and turnover number 4 for Dalvin Gentry's ball club.
You know, Steve Nash talks about Jason Richardson. He said when he gets it going, we're a very special team tonight. I think the Spurs realize that. Jason Richardson does not have a shot at the basket here early.
Duncan double. Goes on Dudley. He's out there with Fry, Stoudamire, Richardson, and Steve Nash. That is the first on Jared Dudley.
I thought this ball went off Jason Richardson's leg right there. It went off his right leg. They did not get the call, but then the next play they did get the call. So this one the ball goes out of bounds, and they said Jason Richardson hit it. So missed the first one. I think they got the second right.
Like the comments of Tim Duncan, Doug, he said defensively in that first round against the Dallas Mavericks, our team kind of developed a defensive personality. We've been looking for that all regular season.
I think a lot of that is they got acclimated with Richard Jefferson being part of the defense and also Antonio McDyess. It's a very intricate defense the Spurs play. Everybody has to be in sync. When one man moves, another guy's got to cover his back, and I don't think early in the year they did that. Now they're doing a much better job of that. I think the numbers support it. But in this series, Kevin, it's going to be, as Popovich says, not transition defense, but super transition defense.
Career low numbers for Tim Duncan during the regular season. His numbers were down because of a career low 31 minutes a game. But I think that's going to pay off here with a fresh body in the playoffs.
No question, his minutes are up to over 37 in the playoffs.
Dudley. Jefferson bit the fake, and Bonner is there to clean up for San Antonio. Rebounding in the game, we've got a 2-rebound advantage for Phoenix so far.
Well, Richard Jefferson chased him off that 3. Bonner, forced Jared Dudley to pull up and shoot a 2-pointer. Not going to let him shoot those spot-up 3s.
Switch on defense. Jefferson is on Nash. Stoudamire trying to set a screen. Little pick and roll here, and Bonner will watch Mario across the lane.
That's a mismatch there. They're going to have to give Bonner help down there. Mario will have a field day if they let him isolate and go against Bonner.
Tony Parker, Duncan a screen. You'll see more pick and rolls in this series, and you might see an whole season's worth of game with some teams as Parker's a little bit short.
Now, Tony shot a curveball on that play. Let's see if Richardson can get out and run. A beautiful pass by Nash. That's what happens when you take a shot. You better get back against the Phoenix Suns. They're going to run on makes, they're going to run on misses, and they're going to run for 48 minutes.
Richardson's got 2. It's Fry watching Tim Duncan. Rebound by Richardson, who comes the other way for the Phoenix Suns. Into Jefferson, chasing Richardson.
Sometimes all you need to do is get a layup, and that's what happened with Jason Richardson. He loves to leak out on the break, leads a Phoenix Suns 6-0 run. He gets a layup, knocks down a jump shot, and Greg Popovich wants to talk it over.
Back in Phoenix, the Suns on an 8-0 run, up 25-14. Now, these Suns fans love to hate the Spurs, and Alvin Gentry told me I don't blame them. 4 of their last 5 playoff runs were ended by the Spurs, and they have these shirts here that say, "It's our turn. Beat the Spurs." Tony Parker told me, "I love this atmosphere. I love when people pull against me. Makes me want to play that much harder." I don't think Tony Parker would want to be standing where I'm standing, Kevin, but I think he loves this atmosphere with guys pulling against him.
Well, Kevin, the two numbers are that 05 and 07. That's really what sticks out with the Phoenix Suns. That's why the fans are nervous, because both of those years the Phoenix Suns had the home court advantage. The Spurs came in and won game 1 and went on and won those series. That's why I think tonight is so important for these Phoenix Suns, is to get this and go up 1-0. As I said before, the Spurs have had 4 days rest. They're going to have to come back on a lot shorter rest to play game 2.
George Hill has just come in for Ginóbili. Nash defending Hill after watching Duncan down low, and that stops a drought of about 3 minutes from the floor for the San Antonio Spurs, who have trailed by as many as 11. They've not led tonight in this 9-point game. Phoenix at 65%. Richardson puts it over Jefferson with the offensive rebound. Pulled down by Stoudamire. That is the second offensive rebound for the Phoenix Suns and the 5th overall for Amari. It's Nash double. Look at the defense by George Hill.
Nice job that time getting their hands up. You saw Duncan just sort of followed Nash all the way to the basket, and then George Hill really closed nicely to get a double team. Go flat, go flat, go flat.
Amari's watching Duncan. Nash is bumped into by Hill on the fly. Playoffs make reputations. Playoffs usually have a player that is showcased. This George Hill, as we take a look at seconds ago in Nash, with Nash picking up his first personal foul. Some nice double defense there.
Well, you saw what Duncan did. He just sort of, went side by side there with Nash, take away that jump shot until George Hill could square him up, and then Duncan then tried to get back to his own man, and Nash made a mistake. You don't see him do it a lot, but he got the ball up over his head to try to pass in traffic, and just the guy smothered him there and forced a turnover.
Blair comes in for Duncan. Barbosa comes in for Phoenix for Jason Richardson. But finishing up my point on Hill, he was the breakout player. These are where reputations are made. And this kid made a nice name for himself in that first round.
Well, you think about all the injuries that the Spurs had last year, Kevin, and sometimes you find a player. And I thought last year when they signed Roger Mason Jr., he did a nice job with the injuries to Parker Ginóbili, as did George Hill. They got time maybe they would not have gotten otherwise. And so now the Spurs are a deeper team with Parker back and Ginóbili back. They could put Roger Mason in the game, who played well. His minutes are way down, and I thought he had a very good year last year for the Spurs.
Amundsen comes in for Stoudamire. That's the other change. Doug told you about the switch, and here's a move inside by Steve Nash, who scoops it home and comes up with his 13th point in the first quarter.
Watch how he splits that pick and roll, Kevin. He is a master. I mean, this guy, watch him little left crossover, then watch him split it, take it between his legs. I mean, you've got to close down that area and not give him any room to split that pick and roll, Kevin. I think that's the toughest thing now. When you see these guards, if you give them any kind of daylight, they will split that pick and roll and get to the basket. I mean, Dwayne Wade is brilliant at it. You see LeBron James, some of these guards are so good at just being able to get to the basket with just a little daylight.
Juwan Blair just picked up his first personal. The driving Tony Parker in the lane. Blair tries to get it. Nash comes out of the pack. Nash for 2. Rebound by Blair. It's picked up, and here comes Parker the other way. Parker's pretty good in this transition game from a San Antonio standpoint. Flying in the paint, guards in the lane for the Spurs.
And look what he did. He split the pick and roll, just exactly what Nash had done. I just spoken about how these guards can do that in the NBA. Spurs, the Suns looking at a 30-point quarter here if they can get a score.
Nash around Bonner. Off of Bonner's foot. Vacuumed in by Blair. No fouls to give either way. Here comes Hill. Difference of about 8 seconds. Game clock and shot clock winding down our first quarter here from Phoenix, Arizona. Tony Parker, 1 of 3, 7 minutes. Defended by Dudley. Oh, what a move by Tony Parker. Against a good defender, too, Dudley.
Just too much speed and quickness for Dudley.
Nash now, seconds remain in the first quarter. Parker was there. Count it for 2 and a foul. George Hill. Now they're going to discuss and see if indeed, yep, they're going to count it.
And that's, remember what I talked about, Kevin, one of the things when you play the Phoenix Suns, you want to try to keep them under 30 points in a quarter. That means they've got the pace of the game up. In the 4 wins against Portland, they had 6 30-point quarters. In the 2 losses, they had none. So the first quarter was played at the pace of the Phoenix Suns.
Hill picks up his second. What about the opposing teams, Doug, wanting to make Nash a score, which is what he has been now with 17 points here in the first.
Well, in the Portland series, they did not do nearly as well. Tonight, they're off to a great start. Let's see how it plays itself out.
Hill at the buzzer. As the Phoenix Suns shoot 59%. They get 17 out of Nash. And Doug, there's your 30-point quarter for the Phoenix Suns. They get 31. Well,
back in Phoenix for the Suns, up 9. Time for the Ford Coach's Corner. Marty Snyder with Greg Popovich. And Coach, do you change anything to slow down Steve Nash a little bit there?
Well, we got to guard him better, that's for sure. He's really had a great start.
They were able to score 30 in that quarter. Do you need to slow the pace a little bit for your liking?
No, I don't think the pace had anything to do with it. Our bad play had a lot to do with it.
All right, Pop.
And the Phoenix Suns shot, Doug, 59% in that first quarter. Second unit is in for the Phoenix Suns. Here comes Ginóbili out there with Parker, starting things off in the backcourt for the San Antonio Spurs.
Interesting couple matchup with what Dudley on Ginóbili. Is he quick enough to keep him in front of him? We got Dragic now playing Tony Parker.
Ginóbili, Blair, Parker splitting the defense. Foul is there. Blair gets it. Shot clock violation. Doug, there is a distinct difference between the starters for the Phoenix Suns and what the second unit brings.
They bring a lot of energy. They're very defensive-minded, and they're a very good three-point shooting group. You have Barbosa, you have Dudley out there, Channing Frye, Dragic, all very good shooters, and then you have Amundsen on the board. So this is a very high-energy, defensive-minded group, and you really got to get to that three-point line.
Barbosa with the drive on Blair. Snaps it outside to Dragic, working on Tony Parker.
Boy, he has played well, Dragic. He got off to a slow start early in the playoffs, and Alvin Gentry stuck with him. And in games 5 and 6, he was terrific.
Alvin had to kind of build his confidence after a rugged first year for Dragic.
Well, that's sometimes what happens. I think a lot of that, too. You had him coming over to the United States. You had the culture change, obviously, a lot of different changes he had to play through, vocabulary, all these things. And Dragic has really been a real key for this team off the bench this year. He's kept Steve Nash's minutes down to about 31 a game, and Alvin Gentry feels very comfortable having him on the floor with Steve Nash. And once again, you've got Tony Parker, who is so good. The hesitation, see, he uses that shoulder, creates the contact, a little kiss off the glass. And Kevin, you talked about it a while ago, when you play the San Antonio Spurs, you better keep those guards out of the paint, just like the San Antonio Spurs must keep Steve Nash out of the paint. When they get in there, bad things happen for your defense.
That might surprise some people that Parker now comes off the bench. He does not start.
Well, I think since his hand injury, Pop likes having the guy come off the bench and score. Remember, he used to do that with Ginóbili. When you don't have a bench, sometimes you got to create one. And that's what he did a few years ago with Ginóbili. With Parker with his injury, that's what he's done. Parker likes, as long as he's playing the fourth quarter, Parker does not mind. And you can see that it's 23-6 in the one series, 15-3, then 23-6. That's how important they have been getting into the paint points-wise against this Suns team.
Barbosa against Blair. That's a matchup that they'll take all day long in Phoenix.
Yeah, that speed of Leandro Barbosa. He loves going to the left.
Parker just picked up his first. Dragic before picked up his first, and Dudley just picked up his second moments ago. Little house cleaning there. Here is Bonner. Working by Frye into Amundsen off the bench, Matt Bonner.
That's okay, though. You want to run him off that three-point line. Don't let him get his feet set, knock down those threes. He's out there to shoot the ball.
Barbosa, who missed a lot of games this year, had wrist surgery. 44 games. Got a cyst removed. Now he's back. He's a luxury for this Phoenix team. And there's a great deal of speed.
Yes, he does.
Dragic against Bonner. Trying to force it inside. Roger Mason Jr. Picks it up, and here comes Ginóbili. Turnover number 6 for the Phoenix Suns. Barbosa knocked it away, reaching around and picks up the foul for the Phoenix Suns.
Now, we'll have to keep our eye, Kevin. If this Suns bench starts to struggle a little bit, Alvin said, you know what, I didn't trust them enough early in that Portland series. I got to stay with them. In Game 5, he did in that Portland series. He had 55 points, actually 55 to 23 against Portland. Let's see if the Suns, if they struggle to score a little bit, if Alvin will stay with his bench. But that's been a real key for him, is to have the patience with that unit.
Because, Doug, he's given these kids time in the regular season. It surprised a lot of people when he kind of changed his ways early in that series, like you said.
But that's what happens. Coaches go more to their starters.
Right.
You see it with the Spurs. You see all those 3 stars are all playing a lot more minutes now than they did in the regular season.
Blair into Amundsen. Juan Blair made second-team All-Rookie. One of 3 second-round picks that made that second team. He's out of Pitt. He's a 37th overall pick, and there's a connection to Phoenix there, too. Phoenix got Dragic in a trade, and down the road a second went to San Antonio, and that second-round pick happened to be Blair. Look at the twisting moves by Jared Dudley, splitting the double team inside by San Antonio. Boy, he means a lot to this team, doesn't he, Jared Dudley?
Yeah, he's such a personality too. He brings so much in that locker room. Guys so trust him. They have so much fun in this team. And Parker shoots a little floater going left, and here comes Dragic on the fast break once again, trying to give it that open court.
Parker 3 of 7. Dragic the other way into Ginobili. Manu the other way. Down defense, transition defense for the Suns. Ginobili slides in for 2 right there.
You asked me a while ago about what do the Spurs want to do. They want to do that. If they can drive it back at the Suns, they want to challenge their transition defense. But Kevin, not with jump shots. Plays like that with Ginobili, or get to the foul line or a post-up, not quick jump shots.
6-point game. Suns led earlier by 11. There's a turnover right there by Dragic. And that's turnover number 7 for the Phoenix Suns.
So sometimes teams that run don't like to be run against. And so here Ginobili just drives it right down, gets to that left hand, uses the glass. The Spurs hanging around, down only 6.
On 61% shooting tonight, the Phoenix Suns are on top by 6 over the Spurs. Time now for a look at the Burger King double-double. Darren Williams along with Carlo Boozer for the Utah Jazz right up there, and Pau Gasol from the Los Angeles Lakers. Utah came close on the Lakers in Game 1.
They really did. They were down big early in that game, I think by 15. They battled back, actually were winning by 4, 93 to 89 in that 4th quarter. And guess what? Kobe Bryant time, I think he had 13 points in the last 4 or 5 minutes of that game, and once again rescued his team, and they lead 1-0 in that series.
Amari Stoudamire has come in for Channing Frye. That was the move by Phoenix, and Hill has come in for Parker. George Hill with it right now. There's a screen by Bonner. Pick and pop over Stoudamire. Bonner missing the triple. Here comes Barbosa. San Antonio, Doug, has not hit a 3 in this game yet.
Well, Amari's got a matchup now with Bonner. They should go to this and take advantage of this. There's no way that Bonner can guard him. Let's see if Amari looks to attack.
Rockets stepping behind the 3-point line, and a tandem came out to close out. By the way, we mentioned before that Grant Hill left the floor, went to the locker room. We found out that with our great undercover work, he was just going to the bathroom. He's only played 7 minutes in this game, by the way. He left with about 4.5 left in the 1st quarter. 4 minutes gone here in the 2nd. Hill. Dragic's defense is apparent. Bonner. Amundsen will pick him up. Ginobili sheds Dudley and works right into Stoudamire. Lou Amundsen brings a little energy off that Phoenix bench.
Yeah, Amari Stoudamire, nice job contesting that shot. Looked like Ginobili was going to have a clear path to the basket.
Amari Stoudamire over Blair. George Hill with the rebound. Ginobili. Dragic swerving inside and draws the foul. So hard to defend. Foul will go Marty Snyder on Amundsen for the first time. What do you have?
Manu Ginobili going to the line here, and you see him playing with a nose brace that is on his nose right now. They actually made it bigger under the last timeout. Manu said someone moved it during the game, so they put a bigger piece of white tape on there. It was a busy 3 quote-unquote days off for Manu. On Friday, after Game 6 with Dallas, went through and proceeded to straighten the nose because the doctors were worried that it was healing crooked. Then on Saturday, they put sensors on his face, made a 3D animation of a mask, and then made the mask. Manu tried it, shot with it, said, you know what, just too bulky for me, so he's going to stick with this apparatus for this entire series. Kevin?
Doug, as a player, did you ever have to wear a mask?
I didn't, but you know, the thing about that, I think the sweat, the perspiration and all would really be tough to play with. In fact, Antonio McDyess had a situation. He talked to Ginóbili when he was in Detroit. He had it happen with him, and he could not wear the mask because it was such a distraction. Ginóbili is one tough character, and he's going to go to the line here to shoot another free throw. But since he had his nose injured, I think if you saw that last graphic, his shooting has been down. Now, he told Marty Schneider today that he didn't feel like that injury or that the thing he was wearing on his face was a problem, but he has not shot the ball well. The thing that saved him is he's been getting to the line a lot over the last 3 or 4 ball games.
Nash is in for Dragic. Amundsen. Duncan defending. Duncan just came in for Blair. Grant Hill has come in for Dudley. Those are the changes. As we got another 6-point game and approaching 7 to play here in the second quarter. Game number 1. Second round. San Antonio and Phoenix. That says it all with a very colorful history between these two. Amundsen is battling with Duncan. This is McDyess over Amundsen. A 3 by Manu Ginóbili. Hill defending. Amundsen cleans it up. Here comes Leandro Barbosa, the Brazilian player. Reaching it. Oh, look at Duncan trying to regain his footing. He was back on his heels, and Tim Duncan at 34 years of age falling out of bounds on the driving Barbosa, who came right into his lap.
Well, you just cannot backpedal with Leandro Barbosa. He is so fast. And what's going to happen anytime anything happens in this series, both these guys are just sort of falling backwards. And there's so much angst in history, Kevin. You've talked about any little thing is going to draw the ire of fans. So that was just a play where they both got tangled up and lost their balance and fell down. There was absolutely nothing to that.
Mason leaves with his first foul. Here comes Jefferson back in the game, and here is Barbosa at the free throw line. And you take a look at Richard Jefferson. It's taken a while for McDyess and Jefferson. We talked about this earlier, to get on the same page. For this Phoenix team, Doug, as Grant Hill is back in with Nash, they have played with a lot of urgency, especially since Dan Marley had a little talk with Grant Hill mid-season about play with urgency every game, even in the regular season.
Yeah, I got to have a little bit more sense of desperation. It actually happened right before that Dallas Maverick game where they turned their season around, finished the season beautifully. Well, people will give the Suns credit for. They're a much better defensive team this year than they have been in the past.
Look at the defense right there. Out of your words comes a nice defensive ploy, and they call the jump ball with Amundsen and Antonio McDyess, who has really brought it up a notch in these playoffs for the Spurs.
It's interesting, but in the year, the Suns' field goal percentage defense by their opponents was actually better than the San Antonio Spurs. Ginóbili loses his footing. It's going to be a jump ball, but over the last 34 games of the season, the Phoenix Suns opponents shot 44%, which would put them in the top 5 in the league. They're a better rebounding team. They're a better defensive team. And they are a team that still scores 110 points because they're a great early offensive team, and they get a lot of threes in transition.
Richardson is coming for Barbosa. He pops one right there. That goes over Jefferson. Rebound by Hill. Nash over McDyess. Parker just came in for Ginóbili, who takes a breather on the bench. They've taken that splint off his nose, as you see him, with nothing taped over the broken nose. Hill is now on Parker.
What we talked about, he's going to have to guard Ginóbili. He's going to have to guard Parker. This is going to be a total defensive series for Grant Hill.
Amundsen comes out. Pick and roll with Duncan. Nice rotation by Phoenix. Stoudamire is there to defend.
Lou Amundsen, once again, that energy and hustle off the bench.
Nash double. Ball deflected. Amundsen. Nash had 17 in the first. He's got 2 in the second. Swerving. The mismatch on Duncan. A 3. Rebound by Tony Parker. He missed a lot of time late in the season with a broken bone in his hand. Now comes off the bench. Doug talked about that earlier. Here's Duncan in a sandwich with Grant Hill and Amundsen. That's a Phoenix foul. 5:21 to play here in the second. Amundsen, a very active player inside. Amundsen picks up his second personal foul. You like the pace, coach, of the game so far?
It is. It seems like Phoenix is up about 15 right now. San Antonio trying to hang tough. When I look at the San Antonio Spurs, one of the stats that jumps out to me is their three-point shooting. They're 0 for 4. The Spurs, a big part of their offense, especially when they had Bruce Bowen, the big part of that was their three-point shooting. They do not have a three tonight. I talked to Greg Popovich before the game. He said, we're not nearly as good as we used to be shooting the three. And how about this in game 3, when they beat the Dallas Mavericks, they did not make a three, 0 of 7. They were minus 24 points from the three-point line in that game and still won the game.
Doug, you're keeping track of Tim Duncan's free throw shooting tonight, now 3 of 5.
Well, he shot 49% against the Dallas Mavericks, and that could be real critical, especially in the close game in the 4th period.
Channing Frye. Jason Richardson, he's got 4. Colliding into Jefferson.
Looks like he's limping a little bit. It looked like he was holding his right thigh. Maybe he and Jefferson collided in midair there, but Jason Richardson is just playing terrific basketball right now for the Phoenix Suns. He's playing with such confidence.
Spurs have missed their last 5 shots from the field. Frye is watching Duncan. The double by Richardson outside. A long 2 by Tony Parker. Rebound by Frye.
And that was a key, long 2. Not let him get to that three-point line. Parker really does not want to shoot threes.
Mismatch over Parker. It's Richardson. Rebound by Antonio McDyess. George Hill so far, Doug, with 7 points, and here's Tim Duncan. He's got 7.
Nice job on him, rotating, double teaming him, keeping him off balance here. Grant Hill once again.
Richardson by Parker.
Boy, if you could see Grant Hill on that play, that was sort of the epitome of what Grant Hill has brought to this team. The ball goes into Duncan. He rotates over, scrambling, then he knocks the ball loose, gets out on the break, and here's Jason Richardson. This is when he is the most lethal, either pulling up and shooting the three or getting all the way to the basket. Phoenix on a 9-1 run, and they lead by 12. The Suns lead by 12, and this is the disrupting defense that we've seen from the Phoenix Suns. Grant Hill's man clears through George Hill. They forced Channing Frye does a nice job of spinning Duncan back. Look at Grant Hill there, forcing him to pick up his dribble, and now he's going to rotate out of there. Watch the rotation. He gets a hand up. He knocks the pass down. And once again, the fast break for the Phoenix Suns. It's Jason Richardson. So Grant Hill tonight, 1 point in the game. Ginóbili is 2 of 6. Parker's 3 of 8. Those two guys are 5 for 14. And sometimes you can put your imprint on a series without being scoring. And you saw what he did to Andre Miller in that first series. That's what he's trying to do to Parker and Ginóbili here to give his team a chance to win. Try to slow those two guys down.
Ginóbili comes in for McDyess. We got small ball on the floor right now for San Antonio. We have a foul down low. Grant Hill was watching Ginóbili. There's another thing you're talking about. You know, it was Hill's defense and Andre Miller, Doug, in that Portland series that changed that series for Phoenix. We talked about that earlier on. Ginóbili picks up his first personal foul. Did a huge job, and here comes Nash. All over the floor. Leading him with 19. Here's Richardson. Ginóbili defending on the play. Frye. Nash. Only 2 in the second quarter. And 17 in the first. 21 for Steve Nash.
I'll tell you what, he plays at such a great pace tonight, though. He's in a very good rhythm. His team is really responding. Here's Ginóbili. It's the first 3 of the game for the San Antonio Spurs, and we always talk about closing quarters. I think a very important time for both of these teams. Can the Phoenix Suns finish strong, or the Spurs, can they cut into this 11-point lead, maybe get this down to 5 or 6 going in at halftime?
Stoudamire and Duncan. Stoudamire, in his 17 minutes on the floor, has put in 6 with 6 rebounds.
Tim Duncan just cannot handle this kind of speed. Stoudamire, when he catches that ball at the elbow, Kevin, that's where you see, to me, the slippage in Tim Duncan's game as he's gotten older is the lateral quickness. He can still rebound, he still block some shots on occasion, but Tim Duncan used to be so good at being able to move his feet in those kind of situations. And you can see Stoudamire just squared him up, used his quickness, drove the ball right around him for the 3-point play.
And on the offensive side, Doug, Duncan is playing a little bit out now, isn't he? Not trying to get involved in all the congestion inside.
A little bit more jump shots.
And Ginóbili begins to drive inside, and Grant Hill is there to defend, and Grant Hill picks up his second personal foul. 2:49 to play here in the second as we take you to our TNT Arena. Here is Ernie Johnson.
All right, thank you, Kev. Coming up on the T-Mobile halftime report, a first-half breakdown from Kenny and Charles. We'll have highlights of tonight's Game 2 in the Boston-Cleveland series, now tied up at a game apiece, and a complete wrap-up on Inside the NBA after the Spurs and Suns. And remember, you can log on to NBA.com after every playoff game and get live streaming coverage of the post-game press conferences. Now, let's come back to the Valley of the Sun to Kevin and the coach.
Doug, you've been keeping, thank you, Ray. You've been talking about the big three and what their shooting has been like too, and how they're influencing this game, if at all, for San Antonio.
They are all three shooting a very low percentage. And George Hill's been a guy, he has 7 tonight, but for the most part, the 3 stars have been very cold, and you've got to give the Suns a lot of credit with their defense.
There's a San Antonio foul. Tony Parker was lunging inside. By the way, Ginobili's got 11. He's put 9 of those 11 through here in the second quarter. Tony Parker picks up number 2. Ginobili's got a new splint on that nose. They changed the gauze moments ago.
The Portland Trailblazers shot 43% against the Suns in the 6-game series. Tonight here in this first quarter, the Spurs are shooting 38%.
Richardson against Hill.
They're going to that matchup. Anytime they see Jason Richardson in that post, he goes right in there against George Hill. We've seen him post up Tony Parker. So Alvin Gentry finding the mismatches and taking advantage of that here in this first half.
10 now for Richardson. 6 have come here in the second. The quick double is sent toward Duncan. Out of bounds. The double worked out well right there. And now they overturn the call. They're going to say it is off of the Phoenix Suns with 2:08 to play and 8 seconds left on the shot clock here late in the second quarter.
Now that ball was deflected by Steve Nash. That's a good call. Kenny Maurer comes in and gives Bennett Salvatore some help. He was screened out on that call.
And a quick foul right out of that. Looks like Nash trying to defend. He'll pick it up. That is the second on Steve Nash, who has played 17 minutes in this first half with the bad right hip and all. And TNT in June, it's a new season and a new reason to get more leverage. The Leverage 2-hour season premiere event is Sunday, June 20th at 9/8 Central, and it's only on TNT. George Hill at the Y. Late first-round pick out of IUPUI. He's always been a favorite of Popovich with what he can do defensively. But Doug, as you mentioned earlier, his offensive game has emerged here in his second NBA season.
His three-point shooting really helped save the Spurs against the Dallas Mavericks. In that game 6, he hit 2 critical threes late in that game. In that game 4, he hit a big one when he had 29. But that's what he worked on all summer. He talked to Bruce Bowen. Bruce Bowen said, you've got to start making those corner threes. That's where you're going to get the shots. And that's exactly what George Hill has done. And he's really improved in that three-point line.
It's Stoudamire right into Tim Duncan and gets his own miss. Richardson, 5 of 9. And picked off by Ginóbili. It's the 8th turnover for the Phoenix Suns. Spurs, by the way, have been capitalizing at the line, plus 9 points right there. Duncan to Parker. Parker against Bryant. Back inside to Tim with a foul. Looks like maybe Stoudamire. Comes right across. Fry was there defending as well. Channing Frye, always there in the Phoenix area, picks up his second personal foul. And once again, Tim Duncan at the line. And Doug tonight, he's 3 of 5.
Kevin, you see the Spurs here when they've had Tim Duncan against the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns, for the longest time, were small ball. And in 05, it was Amari Stoudamire. And then it was Kurt Thomas, and they said, enough of this. We got to get a big guy. They went out and got Shaquille O'Neal. None of those guys were able to unseat the San Antonio Spurs. Now it's Darren Collins, and will we see Robin Lopez at all in this series? Robin Lopez, they feel like can really give him some good minutes, but they're not going to rush him back. He's had a bulging disc. He's been out since March 26th, and they are not going to rush him back on the floor.
He's inactive tonight. Frye rejected by Jefferson, picked up by Tim Duncan with his second rebound. Parker into Nash. In the lane, the guards of the Spurs.
He is so good on those floating shots.
07 Finals MVP Tony Parker. Nash looking to go inside. Hill is jousting with Richardson.
It's a tough matchup. There's no way in the world that George Hill's going to be able to guard Jason Richardson that low post. Remember when Jason Richardson was at Michigan State? He was a very good low post player. And then when he got into the NBA, he started floating more out and shooting a lot of three-point shots. But he is strong in that post, and he's taken advantage of his size in this first half.
So here's Jason Richardson at the free throw line. He'll have his third. He'll leave. Roger Mason Jr. will check in the contest. And here is Richardson, Doug, who is really a barometer. We mentioned this before, but he's really a barometer for this Phoenix team. When he scores 20 or more, watch out, a lot of success for Phoenix.
Well, 29-4 on the year. How about this? They've won 10 straight games with him doing that. Kevin, he was averaging about 14.5 before the All-Star break. After the All-Star break, 17-8. And in the first round against the Portland Trailblazers, almost 24 points a game. He shot 53% from the field, 51% from three. And he had 3 brilliant games. That 42-point game he had in Portland in Game 3 to give them the home court advantage back after they had lost Game 1.
Turnover right there with Tony Parker wheeling down the lane. Turnover number 7 for the San Antonio Spurs. No fouls to give either way with under a minute to play. Here in the first half, you see the turnover story and the point foul turnovers, which is basically the same. Richardson and Ginóbili. That's a foul on Ginóbili, who will pick up for him his second personal foul. I remember another number 20 that used to play like this. He used to play for Philadelphia, Doug Collins.
Yeah, the man who is, you got to love his hustle and his feisty, scrappy play. The Phoenix Suns fans don't like him, but I guarantee you they'd love to see him wear a Suns jersey. He's one of those kinds of players. And Jason Richardson going back to the line here in the Phoenix Suns in the first half. That's only their 10th free throw attempt. The San Antonio Spurs have shot 20, so a big part of the Spurs just hanging around is the fact they've gotten to the line 20 times here. 12 points off turnovers for the Phoenix Suns, 10 for the San Antonio Spurs.
Times, Doug, we see Greg Popovich. You touched on this briefly before. Zero in on a certain thing to shut down for a team, whether it's a player or a certain thing that opposing team may run. How do you think he's going to approach this series against the Suns?
Well, I asked him about that. The history has been to let Amari throw up a big night and try to shut down everybody else. He said, I don't think the way this Suns team is compromised, we can do that.
Parker! Wow, is he fast.
That's too easy, though. Alvin Gentry cannot like that. We've seen now Parker go end-to-end, Ginóbili go end-to-end, and as well as Phoenix has played in this first half, I think they've been very dominant. They're only up by 10.
Parker's got 7 coming in here in this second quarter. This is Stoudamire right into Duncan. Amari Stoudamire has gone 4 of 8. He's got 9 and 7 rebounds.
I think over the last part of his season since All-Star break, you can say Amari Stoudamire has played as one of the top 5 players in the NBA. He has been absolutely terrific.
There's a difference of 3 seconds. The game clock and the shot clock. It's to their feet. There's a screen by Duncan. Dragic is checked in for his defense. It's Jefferson into Dragic with a foul. Duncan is down.
Well, it looked like he got his leg rolled up into. He's got that left knee brace. And Dragic rolled up into that leg. Let's hope it's nothing serious as Tim Duncan is gingerly trying to get up here with Richard Jefferson.
Dragic picks up his second. Tim Duncan is wearing a very light brace, which he has worn all season long on that left knee, which has needed some support.
Oh, he
hyperextended that knee. He sure did.
Wow.
He stays in the game, though, with Jefferson at the line.
Those are scary things like that when you have that happen to you, Kevin, and especially with that knee that he's had a problem with.
Sort of an ultra-light composite, that left knee brace here as he continues to kind of shake out the cobwebs. And here is Jefferson, who began the Dallas series terrifically. He simmered down a little bit as the series wound down. But the point is, he has made his presence felt, as we mentioned before, on this Spurs team. Finally.
Well, you know, Mr. Holt, the owner of the San Antonio Spurs, really went on the limb. He felt like with Duncan, Ginóbili, Parker, their window is about 2 years. So instead of waiting till this summer to do something, he went out and got Richard Jefferson, signed McDyess to go well into the luxury tax. And so the San Antonio Spurs know when you have these 3 star players, you better put guys around them that have a chance to win now. And Mr. Holt has done that.
There's Garrett Temple in the game for San Antonio. Nash, Stoudamire, good it goes. That closes out the first half. Phoenix leads by 10, Doug. They shot 57% They're right on course, exactly what they want to do. They hold the San Antonio Spurs to 42% from the field.
Yeah, very good first half by the Phoenix Suns. I thought Steve Nash really gave them a lot of confidence early. Kevin, he came out, had that great first quarter. The Suns put 30 on the board, and so they felt very good about their first quarter, but the Spurs are still lurking as Steve Nash is with our Marty Snyder.
As you mentioned, Coach, 21 points, 5 assists for Steve Nash. Are you concerned, though, Steve, after the terrific half you guys played, you're not up by more?
Well, we'd like to be up by more, but we'll take it. You know, we're playing well. I think the game's in a pretty good rhythm. We could have converted a couple more times and we could have stopped a couple more times, but that's life. We got to just, you know, continue to play at the pace and the confidence level that we need to at both ends of the floor in the second half.
Are you more proud of what you guys did offensively in the first half or defensively?
Well, you know, I'm proud of both, but I think we could have done better at both as well. You know, we could have tightened up a few times, probably put them on the line a little bit more than we would have liked to have, and I thought, you know, at times we didn't make them pay offensively when we really had advantages.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
After a quick break, we'll go to our Atlanta studios for the T-Mobile halftime report. EJ, Kenny, and Charles and the gang all there here in Phoenix. Suns are up by 10 at the end of the first half.
In this first game of the West semifinals, the Phoenix Suns have led by as many as 14 points, up by 10 here at halftime. With Hall of Famer Doug Collins, Kevin Harlan, thank you so much for joining us. Doug, the beginning of the game for Steve Nash was spectacular. 17 points the first.
Yeah, Kevin, when we came walking out, I saw Steve and I went over to him and I said, was that on design, by design, that you got off to that great start? And he said, you know, I felt really good. Number one. Number two, I saw a lot of gaps in their defense. And I talked to Chip England, the assistant coach for San Antonio. I said, what didn't you like about that first half? And he said, the way we guarded Steve Nash on the screen roll. So Steve took advantage of that, got his team off to a very, very good start tonight.
Points in the paint were a big story in that first half.
Yeah, when you think of the San Antonio Spurs, you think of their guards in the paint. It's been actually the Phoenix Suns guards in the paint. Steve Nash had 10 in the first quarter. Amari Stoudamire with that quick speed. And he went right by Tim Duncan. Steve Nash, once again in that first half, was sensational getting to the rim. They posted Jason Richardson, and 36 points in the paint for the Phoenix Suns, plus 18. The mid-range game, you see where it is. The Spurs thought they did a nice job chasing the Suns off that three-point line, but also the Spurs were not happy at all with the way they played offense. So let's see if they're much crisper in this second period, this third period here, as they try to get out of the gate a little bit quicker than they did to start this game.
And let's take a look at our Corona stats leaders through one half of basketball. You can see the high scores. Nash had 17, as we said before, in the first quarter. He had 4 in the second.
And interestingly enough, Tony Parker is starting here in this third period instead of George Hill. So it looks like that Greg Popovich feels like he needs to get off to a good start. George Hill got in foul trouble trying to play against Jason Richardson down on the post. So now we'll have to look at the matchup. If Grant Hill guards Manu Ginóbili, that's going to put Steve Nash on Parker. Let's see if Parker tries to get Nash involved in a lot of screen rolls here off Duncan to start this period.
Parker and Ginóbili. McDyess, Tim Duncan down below. Jefferson, that is the 5 out there for the San Antonio Spurs. Jaron Collins doubles now with Hill on. They swing it to Parker. It goes over Stoudamire. Good way for San Antonio to start the second half.
Yeah, I think what Greg Popovich is doing, he wants Nash to have to work on the defensive end. He had way too much freedom in the first half, so with Parker starting, Nash now has to guard Tony Parker. He cannot guard Ginóbili. It's a bad pass, and it's going to be a good start here for the San Antonio Spurs. 4 quick points, and they are right back in this ball game now, down only 6 points.
Nash with his 3rd turnover, Doug. And 7, as Coach told you earlier, in Game 6 in Portland, double teamed inside of Stoudamire. They've got no answer for him down low.
He's got such great confidence right now. After that first half, I think he feels like he could score on anybody in that paint.
Nash and Parker, Stoudamire, McDyess, Ginóbili dishing off to McDyess, who knocks it down. He was a big factor in the Spurs winning that first round against Dallas.
Yeah, I was kidding him before the game. I said, what is it with all these Alabama guys? They just start playing in the playoffs. He and Robert Horry is Nash once again. But Robert Horry, the longtime big shot Bob here in San Antonio, winning the championship there with the Spurs. Now it's Antonio McDyess, the star from Alabama, who stepped in and trying to win a championship here.
Ginóbili diving his way into Stoudamire. Stoudamire picks up his 2nd. Marty Snyder, what do you have?
Kevin talked to Greg Popovich on his way out of the locker room, and he told me that Tim Duncan's left knee was a little bit more of a scare than anything else. Remember, it was hyperextended towards the end of that quarter, and he's going to be fine in this quarter. But Pop told me what he talked about when you talked about Chip England. He said, we've got to stop Steve Nash. I felt like we should be down by 25 points. He said, we've guarded the three terrifically tonight. He said, but if we can stop those penetration baskets, we can still win this game.
There's Manu Ginóbili at the free throw line, and chips away a bit at that Phoenix lead, which was as high as 14 points. Just finishing up Doug on McDyess. He was so physical in that first series against Dirk Nowitzki in Dallas.
And that was his job, really, to try to make Dirk Nowitzki work as hard as he can. They did not want to double and triple team Nowitzki where he could free up those shooters for the Dallas Mavericks, and he did a nice job. And Dirk was terrific. He had 33 in that game 6, 25 in the second half. It's just not enough to beat this Spurs team.
Collins a screen. Nash puts down a triple. The screen was on Parker. It's McDyess and now Parker. 2 minutes gone here in the third. Tony Parker over Steve. McDyess saves it, but right back to Nash, who is 11 of 15. Ginóbili now on him. Parker's watching him. See if Green tries to cash in. He does. Nice double by Duncan and McDyess, who came in there. On the other way. Watching the triple on the fly. Off transition, those threes. I know they work for Phoenix. What about the threes off transition for San Antonio?
Well, they really don't shoot them that often. They do not want to get in that kind of game with the Suns, but Manu Ginóbili had a great look at that. That's only the second three of the game.
Richardson by Duncan.
It's a bad shot there. It's going to lead to another fast break. It's back-to-back defensive stops, and you know they're going to get in trouble with those kind of shots. Alvin Gentry cannot like those last two possessions. Going to take a timeout. And you want to push the pace, but you want to take good shots against the Spurs. They're an opportunistic, fast-breaking team, and you saw Ginóbili with the three, followed up by Richard Jefferson with a reverse layup, but Ginóbili pulling up, knocking down the three. The Spurs on a 13-7 run. They're much more fluent offensively here to start this third quarter. The Suns are going to have to talk about it as Duncan lays the ball in.
Here's Nash. About 3 minutes gone here in the third quarter. McDyess comes out on Nash. Collins is picked up by Ginóbili. And Jaron Collins with the offensive board. That's a timeout. And that's exactly what he gets with Ginobili's smothering defense down low. So they take a pause right here.
It gives you a chance to become the ultimate fan. It's the only place you'll find exclusive NBA gear. It's where you can actually put yourself in their shoes. It's the place where you can find your favorite player's jersey. It is the key to everything an NBA fan needs. It's one store, every team.
Back in Phoenix earlier in the third quarter, the Suns clinging to a 4-point lead. Last two huddles, Alvin Gentry has told his guys, listen, we need to play our pace of the game. Move the ball, get it up court quickly, but let's take smart shots. He said, we're a better team than this, guys. We're taking some dumb shots when we are in transition. Kevin?
All right, Marty.
And what it's led to is 7 fast break points for the San Antonio Spurs, who took advantage of those bad shots. Let's see if they can execute and get a play out of this timeout.
Stoudamire and McDyess. Stoudamire 5 of 10. Duncan came over there, gets the block. He's got 2, and this will trigger Tony Parker the other way. Again, Parker starting the second half. Duncan a screen. The weaving Parker.
It's a good move by Greg Popovich to start Tony Parker, because now you've got to make Nash work, and let's see if it takes a little bit of his legs away from him, because now he's got to chase Tony Parker around all those screens.
15 for Parker. 7 of 13 for the night. Here's Richardson, picked up by Jefferson. Shot clock is down to 8.
This is when the Suns get in trouble, right here, when they have to play half-court offense against this Spurs half-court defense. That's why you got to get defensive stops, Kevin. Right now with the Spurs scoring, they're getting their defense back, and Tony Parker is going to work.
So San Antonio is on a 9-0 run, and they have tied the game. They have not led tonight. It's Stoudamire inside. McDyess was defending. It's off of the Phoenix Suns.
And that's all McDyess wants him to do, take tough shots. But watch again, they're screening Steve Nash. He tries to go all the way underneath the screen, and Tony Parker has become so good at that medium range jump shot. I talked about Chip England a while ago, one of the assistant coaches of the Spurs. He's really worked with Tony Parker on his shooting. 7 of 8, that means the Spurs are taking the ball in out of the basket. They're not running, they're getting in the half court, and now the Spurs are starting to take control.
Channing Frye has just come in for Jarrett Collins. Pick and roll, Parker to Duncan. Snaps it outside, Ginóbili for 3. Good! And San Antonio has their first lead of the game.
Now is when the Suns need poise. Now you're going to feel the angst in this building. This is the last thing the Phoenix Suns fans wanted to see. Now you've got to have poise. You've got to execute.
Frye uncovered for 3. Now 7 consecutive misses for the Phoenix Suns as Parker comes the other way. Parker, by the way, off the bench with 17. Inside Ginóbili. Rebound by Stoudamire, clutching on to number 8 with his 11 points. Frye. Richardson for 3.
Isn't it amazing when you get a defensive stop that it leads to a transition three-point? Because now the Spurs are trying to run back and find their own people. That's when the Suns are so good shooting threes.
We said that all season. They're better in transition, throwing up those three-point shots.
Because what happens is if your big runs the floor, a lot of times he's picked up by a smaller player, and then no one is talking who is going to get Jason Richardson. They just cannot get there, and that's when the Suns are at their best in the open floor. But to do that, you've got to get defensive stops.
I just picked up his 3rd personal foul. San Antonio shooting 80% here in this 3rd quarter. They've made adjustments out of halftime.
Now with Parker starting, it's changed the tempo of the game, and again, it's forced Steve Nash to defend Parker, and Ginóbili is starting to warm up now as well. He's now 6 of 11. He'd gotten off to a cold start. He has 21. Parker has 17, so those 2 guards now with 38 points. Still a lot of time to play in this game.
Pick and roll, Parker, Duncan, 7. A bit away. Much to the surprise of the veteran, Tim Duncan. Look at Alvin Gentry, got some Coach of the Year votes. Eventually went to Scott Brooks of Oklahoma City. Another 3, Richardson. That time the close is by Duncan. It's saved by Jefferson. Here comes Ginóbili, and they race the other way by San Antonio. Tim Duncan. Boy, he is money from outside the lane, banking it home and giving the Spurs the lead.
Was that money in the bank, and you could say, right?
11 for Tim Duncan. Parker on Nash. Handoff to Richardson.
Very nice.
And more screening that got him free.
Nash loves to drive down and then sort of wheel back and get guys slashing off to him. A lot of times he'll hand that ball off to Stoudamire. That time it was Jason Richardson.
17 for Richardson on 13 shots tonight. The screen roll. Parker this time finds Jefferson inside. McDyess.
Boy, these San Antonio Spurs look like a totally different team offensively in this 3rd quarter. Tony Parker has made a huge difference being out there with the starters. There's that little play I just talked about where Nash drives. This time he drops it off for Amari Stoudamire. It was like a little dribble handoff, and he actually screens the guy that's playing Amari Stoudamire. That's a big money play for them. Nice field goal.
Nash comes up with his 7th assist.
Watch this. Now watch what Nash does. He's going to drive here, little drive, and then watch Jason Richardson. He's going to slash right off his tail to get the handoff for the easy score. Then they run it to the other side for Amari Stoudamire. Back-to-back field goals. We got a tie game.
As we take a look at the Ford driving force, that Popovich Duncan tandem dog has had a lot of postseason success.
It sure has. We see a lot of Phil Jackson up there too. Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. How about Tim Duncan and Pop? Great stars, great coaches. That's 14 championships up there between those 2 guys.
The big 3 have keyed on them tonight. They've had great starts to this 2nd half for the game. They've accounted for 49 of San Antonio's 71 points.
Well, the Spurs are 10 of 12 this quarter. So they've outscored the Phoenix Suns by 24 to 14. Their offense has been very efficient, which helped their defense, and right now they're back in this ball game.
George Hill is in for Ginóbili. Frye continues to take the place of Collins. One-on-one with Duncan. Richardson grabs the ball. Here comes Stevie Nash. He's got 26.
Let's see if George Hill does a better job here in this period than he did on Nash in the first quarter when Nash had his way.
Pick and roll, Stoudamire. Closing the gap, the San Antonio defense, which has improved greatly in the postseason. The shot clock is down to 6 for Grant Hill. This is over Parker, and the rebound is lassoed by McDyess, who claims his 7th. Grant Hill is on Parker. The screen by Duncan that opens up Tony. Richardson the rebound. Grant Hill. As he was working into Jefferson, McDyess steps out of bounds. Phoenix's ball.
Kevin, it's going to be very interesting here. 4:06 to go in this quarter. Tie game, and you know how Alvin Gentry loves to go to that bench.
Yep.
In that fourth quarter, it's going to be very interesting here if the Suns are behind. How much you trust that bench to start this fourth quarter that's been so good for him, or does he start getting his bench here in a little early and maybe change a little bit of substitution pattern? So now we're starting to get a little time now where you start coaching ahead to get into that fourth quarter.
Bonner for McDyess and over Bonner. The shot by Nash with 28. Well, we talked about how opposing teams want to make Nash a score. He's got 7 points in this third quarter. 7 assists for Nash in the game. Fry is watching Duncan. Doubled by Nash, who slips. And that means Hill dumps it into Tim. And Tim Duncan, 5 of 10, 13 points. Nash. Jefferson knocks it away on a pass intended for Amari Stoudamire. They double Parker. It slides inside, and a foul is called. Duncan, who went right into Grant Hill, who took it.
That's Grant Hill walking. You see him stepping over and taking that charge. Little plays here that change games. Grant Hill gets outside the lane, and you see Duncan run right through him. Duncan thought he had stepped to the side, but took that blow right in the chest. Once again, the nice defensive play by Grant Hill.
Hill is gone. Dudley has come in the game. Nash and Stoudamire. Dudley, Fry, and Richardson, the Phoenix 5. Off balance, Nash. Parker defending. Steve Nash has put in 30 points, Doug, on 18 shots.
They're trying to take away Amari Stoudamire on that roll, and Nash is keeping the dribble alive and getting that paint and hitting all kinds of floaters.
Parker 8 of 15. Duncan with the rebound. Stoudamire cleans it up. Nash by Jefferson into Bonner. Out to Dudley. Over to Nash and picked up by Bonner. With the mismatch, Steve. Fry for 3.
It's a big stretch for the Phoenix Suns, because if they can get a little bit of a lead, it's going to allow Alvin Gentry to have so much more confidence in that bench. Big 2 minutes and 30 seconds here by both teams.
Fry is at 2 threes. He's got 6. Here comes Parker. Shoots it out to Jefferson. Rebound by Stoudamire. He's got 10 with a double-double and 13 points. Nash finds Richardson. What a pass by Steve Nash. What a pace to the game. Richardson's got 19. Parker. Hill wide open for 3. Volleyball, then 11th rebound for Stoudamire. A 7-0 run for Phoenix. On the outside, Richardson 3. Jefferson in to Dudley. Count it! And it's a foul. Jared Dudley picks it up. What a run after taking a 3-point lead. Phoenix turns it on and recaptures the advantage and goes up 83-75. Dudley picks up number 3.
And Steve Nash right in the middle of everything. You cannot leave Channing Frye. He knocks down the 3. How about this beautiful backdoor by Jason Richardson? Jason Richardson follows it up with a 3. Richardson with 22 points. They have won 10 straight games with him getting 20 points. Let's see if they can make it 11. But Kevin, this spurt here at the end of the quarter, what it means to the Phoenix Suns is so important with Alvin Gentry now being able to go to that bench.
Bonner, Ginobili, Richardson defending. That's an offensive foul. Ginobili will pick up number 3.
A lot of this happened too when Tony Parker sat down. Now that's not saying it had anything to do with George Hill being on the floor, but when Tony Parker sat down, the Suns have really gone on this big spurt.
You're right, Fry, Stoudamire. Right over player who moments ago checked in for Tim Duncan. And Stoudamire has got 15 points and 11 rebounds. Hill 2 of 5. Shot clock down to 8. Player with the screen. Here comes Bonner off his foot, picked up by Dudley. Here comes Nash. Richardson on the wing. Hill picks up Steve. Spurs have a foul to give. Mismatch. Hill watching Fry. Double team by Ginobili. Off a player and off at San Antonio. 27.9 to play in the third.
Well, you can see the lack of three-point shooting with this Spurs how it really has hurt them, Kevin. They've lost their spacing, and they're not able to do what they used to do, spread that floor and shoot the threes.
That's a good point.
And the Suns have really done a nice job closing and making them shoot those long twos.
For years you talked about that, Doug. A steal by Ginobili. Into Richardson and Stoudamire. Blair comes down hard. Ginobili saves it, launches the uncovered 3. Richardson is right there. He's got 22.
That's not a good shot by Ginobili. Should have held that out for the last possession. Let's see if the Phoenix Suns can take advantage.
Richardson. Right into Bonner. Offensive foul called on Jason Richardson. It picks up his second with 0.2 of a second to play here in the third quarter, which has been thrilling.
Well, the Suns finally are getting some defensive stop. The Spurs scored on 10 out of 12 shots. And in this stretch, the Suns defense has triggered their offense. They got into the running game. They hit some threes. They got into the open court. What a brilliant finish.
The Suns close out the quarter on a 12-2 run. They were down by 3. They lead by 10 on TNT.
Back in Phoenix, the Suns up by 9 after 3. We get ready to start the fourth quarter with the Verizon Coach's Corner. Marty signed with Alvin Gentry and Tony Parker started the third there, Coach. How much did that change what you had to do?
Well, we had to try to start trapping him a little bit to get the ball out of his hand. You know, we gave up 24 points in the first 7 minutes. Our defense has been good up until that point. We got to get it back. And then we got to get out and run like we did the last 5 minutes of the quarter.
Yeah, nice 12-2 run for you guys. But how much can you really use the bench here in the fourth? You have to stick with the starter?
Well, no, we're going to use our bench. We'll do that. And then we'll get the start of the little rest and get them back in. But our bench has been good for us the whole year. We just got to make sure that we have confidence in it.
Thanks, Alvin.
All right.
Kevin?
Doug, Phoenix led by 10 at halftime. They lead by 10 at the end of 3.
Well, I just think that big spurt there at the end of that period really gives Alvin a chance now to play his bench with a 10-point lead. If it were tied or a 2-point game, he might not be as confident, but right now he could go with his team that has been so good for him. I like he's kept Amari Stoudamire on the floor to go with 4 bench players so he has some scoring.
Barbosa being one of them, Dudley being another, a 3. Amundsen is in there working on Bogans. Dragic is the 5th San Antonio, the 5th Phoenix Suns player on the floor. Foul goes on Keith Bogans, who picks it up. He's out there with Mason and Ginobili and Blair and George Hill. That sets the lineups to begin the fourth quarter here in Phoenix. Dragic finds Amari Stoudamire. Works on Blair. Oh, nice fake. Nice fake. What a move by Amari Stoudamire with 17.
That's why I love what Alvin's done. He's got Amari out there that you can play through, and he's got 3-point shooting. I don't know they have anybody out there that can handle it. Dwayne Blair cannot handle Amari Stoudamire on the post as we saw in that last move.
They double. Deflected play by the man up front, Amundsen. Here comes Dragic. Stoudamire and Blair adjusting for position. That's a foul. It's going to be called on Dwayne Blair, who picks up his second personal foul for San Antonio.
I love you. Turn in your face, use that speed, the little pump fake. Beautiful footwork by Amari Stoudamire, playing brilliant basketball right now. 17 points, more importantly, 11 rebounds. Did not rebound well in that Portland series. Actually was the third leading rebounder behind Hill and Jason Richardson. So they need his rebounding tonight. He has come through.
Ginóbili. Roger Mason Jr. picked up by Barbosa. They got a cross matchup now. That's a defensive 3-second violation. So Blair is watching Stoudamire on one hand. At the other end, Blair is picked up by Jared Dudley on the cross.
And you can see what Greg Popovich's doing. He's really gone to 4 guards and Blair out there right now. And he's trying to get some three-point shooting. Mason, one of their better three-point shooters. Ginóbili misses the free throw. And Greg Popovich trying to space this floor a little bit, maybe go to a smaller lineup, find some three-point shooting, but his problem right now is going to be able to try to defend Amari Stoudamire.
San Antonio, by the way, from the free throw line, plus 11 points tonight over Phoenix. George Hill. Mason defending with Stoudamire. Saved by Dudley, picked up by Dragic. 3-on-2, Stoudamire. Hit by Mason. He picks up the San Antonio foul. 10:20 to play in the fourth and the second on Roger Mason Jr.
You know, I think when I look at the Spurs numbers, they have shot 26 free throws. If I'm not mistaken, they had shot 22 at halftime. So Alvin Gentry talked to his team about too much fouling, and they've done a much better job. Only 4 free throw attempts here in the second half for the San Antonio Spurs.
Stoudamire 2 of 2 from the free throw line. Amazing as being here. Season tickets for the 2010-11 season are on sale right now. Go to NBA.com/tickets to reserve your seats. The NBA, where amazing happens. Now the Suns on top by 14, Coach. This is their biggest lead of the night.
When they have those little defensive surges, it triggers so much offense for them, and we saw how explosive they are. See if the Spurs can knock down a 3. That's a big shot by Bogans.
Keith Bogans. Picked up in the offseason, known for his defense and his three-point shooting. Buries one right there, under 10 to play in the fourth quarter.
I think Alvin Gentry wants them to look at that to see if that's a 3 or not. We'll see if they have a stoppage to play. If they do that, it's going to be a walk on Amari Stoudamire.
And 13 turnovers now for Alvin Gentry's Phoenix Suns.
Take a look here and see. It looked like Alvin Gentry said something to Bennett Salvatore. Bennett ruled it a 3, and then when I looked like at Alvin, looked like he wanted Bennett to take a look at that to see if that was a 3 or not.
Ginóbili is 6 of 13. Lasers it inside for Bogans, who got around 2. Amundsen and Dragic defensively for Phoenix.
Keith Bogans, a very strong player, known for his defense, but did a nice job that time. He screened and then slid right underneath the basket for the easy score. The Suns do not want to fall asleep here after having a 14-point lead.
Amundsen, a rugged sprinter. They switch on defense. Blair is on Dragic. And he deflects the shot, picked up by Dudley. Shot clock at 2. Dragic. Oh! How about that?
How about Amundsen and Dudley, the hustle to give them that opportunity, and Dragic understanding the shot clock gets the score. That is the energy that this second unit brings for Alvin Gentry and the Suns.
Dragic with 4. Ginóbili for 3. Dragic defending. Grant Hill is back in the game. Taking the place of Stoudamire. Boy, now they're really small out there, Phoenix is. Barbosa works on Hill. Slides by Blair. His first step is going to be as fast and as quick target as any in the NBA.
Well, both teams have gone to small ball, but sometimes it's the extra possession. Dudley finds the loose ball. He gets it to Amundsen, who gets it to Dragic, who beats the shot clock, puts his team back up 11.
As Blair picks up his third and a timeout in Phoenix.
We're in timeouts and we're in periods of the game where it's close and, you know, the last 5 minutes, we're in huddles talking about let's get stops. Let's get 3-4 stops in a row and separate ourselves and get this win. And that's not something that we've talked about, you know, in years past. So I think the main thing is that we have toughness, we have grit, and we know how to play defense.
Doug, they took the timeout after San Antonio had a very good start to the second half.
Well, the Spurs had made 10 of their first 12 shots in the third quarter. They took that timeout. We went on the run, and the way they did it, 4 of 14 for the Spurs. So that's exactly what Grant Hill was talking about. Get some defensive stops. You see what they have done as the season has gone on after the All-Star break. Their opponents 44% the first round against Portland. They shoot 43%, score only 93 points. And here tonight, the San Antonio Spurs are now shooting 47% from the floor. They had got up over 53% at one point in time when they had that little spurt. But Kevin, with all the said and done and stuff, it's still only going to be about a 12, 13-point game here. Still plenty of time. The Suns have got to stay up with their defense because the Spurs can attack quickly.
What a pace to this game.
23 fast break points right now for the Phoenix Suns. I'm not sure that when Greg Popovich sees that, he's going to be happy with that transition defense. We talked about that being a real key in this series.
Ginobili and Hill, Bogans, Duncan is in for Blair. Mason screened by Duncan, wide open three by Roger Mason. Fry is in the game, and he picks it up and gives to Barbosa. The Suns started the second half 4-12.
Well, now they're 10 of 15 because their defense has created offense. They got out in the fast break. They got those easy scores. When the Spurs were scoring, they got into a half-court game and could not score. So that's the importance, Kevin, of efficient offense and what it leads to you defensively. And when you stop scoring, it opens you up for teams to be able to run out and get easy scores against you. That's why teams want to push tempo and not have to play in a half-court game.
Mason picks up his third. Stoudamire is resting with 19 points and 11 rebounds. Amundsen at the free throw line. And the penalty at 8-10. With Phoenix on top by 13, their lead is bulged as high as 14. Equals it right there. TBS in June. From executive producer Ice Cube comes a brand new sitcom about one family's journey to get there. Are We There Yet? A brand new series. It premieres June 2nd at 9, 8 Central, only on TBS. Mason comes up with it. Approaching 8 to play here in the fourth. Screened by Duncan. Hill fights his way through. You mentioned this earlier about Grant Hill. He's not just content guarding one guy. He's got to guard the entire floor for the Suns.
Well, let's see what he does now. He's been guarding Ginobili. Parker is coming in the game. Let's see if Grant Hill goes over to Parker. They're going to leave Barbosa on him. So when Nash comes back in the game, now they've got Dragic on Tony Parker. I like that matchup. So now you keep Grant Hill on Manu Ginobili. Try to keep him calm down a little bit because he went through that spurt where he scored about 7 or 8 points in a hurry.
Parker's come in for Mason for San Antonio. Dudley is coming for Amundsen for Phoenix. Shot clock is at 7 for Tim Duncan, picked up by Fry. Hill will come over and try to help Fry. There's some nice defense inside for the Phoenix Suns, and Dragic the other way.
Channing Frye actually did a pretty good job in the first round on LaMarcus Aldridge, so his defense is a big plus right now.
Barbosa into Duncan with the screen by Fry and picked up by Ginobili, who gets the rebound. Hill is there. Duncan has screened the double on Ginobili. Duncan and Fry. Dudley was in there trying to hedge. Fry picks up the foul. Assessed his 4th personal.
What they're doing with Duncan, they don't want to double team him when he catches the ball, Kevin. So what they're doing is they're waiting for him to start his move, and then they're digging down from the top. You talked about Dudley digging down there, and then when Duncan saw that happening, he took the ball and he tried to get into the shooting motion. And watch what happens there. They're going to throw the ball in the post. And watch Dudley now. He doesn't go anywhere. Now watch when he starts bouncing the ball. That's when he's going to dig down and just try to fake at him and force him to try to make a play on the dribble. They're going to say now that he is not in the act of shooting, and they will take the ball sideline out of bounds.
Ginobili into Duncan. Great pass by Manu Ginobili on top. He comes up with his 5th assist. And Tim Duncan's got 15 points and 8 rebounds.
It's small ball right now for the Spurs. It's 4 guards and Duncan.
Dragic weaving through all those players. Mismatch against Duncan. Shot clock at 9. Dragic. Rebound by Duncan. Ginobili was leaking early. Here comes Hill, and Manu slides in for 2. Ginobili has got a San Antonio high 23 points. 10-point game. Dragic for 3.
Bad shot. They don't need that shot right there. Lead for another run out. for the Spurs. If they score here, look for Alvin to get a timeout.
Parker. Bogans. Dudley's on Parker. Dragic is on Bogans. Fryers watching Duncan. Now the switch. Dudley now goes on Parker. Tony Parker just makes things happen every time he comes in. You called it, Doug. Here's a timeout by Gentry with a nice runner right there inside by Tony Parker. 19 points on 17 shots.
Well, Alvin Gentry giving Channing Frye an earful on this play. Felt like he's been back there helping. Did not get back into the play. The Spurs now in a 6-0 run. Alvin not happy. The Spurs are not going to go away. The Phoenix is going to have to win this the hard way. 48 minutes.
Hall of Famer Doug Collins, Kevin Harlan, you see our score. It was 14, now it's down to 8. Doug, there are a lot of demons associated with the Suns and Spurs for Suns fans in this series.
Yeah, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, what bad can happen.
Right.
And that's why I think this next couple minutes for the Suns is very, very important. The Spurs have cut that 14-point lead down to 8 in a 2-minute period of time. Steve Nash back in the game, Jason Richardson, those guys have combined for 52 points. Let's see if the Suns can find a field goal on this possession.
Suns haven't scored from the field in over 3 minutes. There's Nash. Ginobili knocks it away and picked up by Tony Parker. Ahead to Hill and to Stoudamire. Duncan puts it back up and in with 17. Tim Duncan. Nash has got 5 turnovers, Coach.
Well, that's what he's been struggling with here in the last few games. See if Frye can knock down a shot. He misses the 3, and here comes the Spurs. And once again, against small ball, they have 4 smalls out there with Tim Duncan. It's going to be middle screen roll and attack.
We called it Duncan inside. Stoudamire reaching in. Amari picks up the foul. That's number 3 on him. Just finishing up on some of the new players. You mentioned Nash is back in. He sat out for 20 minutes of real time. And the Suns were -2, Doug, in the category while he was resting.
But you see what's happening now. The momentum has swung to the San Antonio Spurs. I talked about Duncan's free throw shooting, 49% against Dallas. Let's see how he walks up to the line to shoot these 2. Critical time right now. You got to make free throws when you're trying to play in from behind, and you see what Tim Duncan did. I talked about it's 49%. Tonight he is 3 for 8.
San Antonio. Parker and Nash. Duncan and Stoudamire. Hill and Ginobili. Richardson and Hill. Shot clock at 9. Sticking. Screen by Stoudamire. Switch with Duncan. Nash sliding in. Ginobili may have knocked it away, and he did with this defense. And here comes Parker. Ginobili. Bogans. Duncan. Oh, with a great twirling move and terrific passing by San Antonio. And Tim Duncan's got 27 coming, Doug, in this 4th quarter.
How about the spacing on the floor, though? They have the 4 guards outside the 3-point line, and Duncan working the paint.
Richardson guarded by Hill. Duncan and Stoudamire waging war on the block. Amari, the dive, the foul. Duncan. And Ginobili was in there. Duncan is slow. Maybe Bogans is slow to get up.
I think what they're going to rule here, did he catch that ball in the lower area? If he did, you can, as a secondary fender, come over and take the charge. So let's see what you're going to talk about here. But if he caught that ball in that lower quadrant, your secondary fender can take a charge in the restricted area. I think you're going to change this call.
It's going to be San Antonio's ball.
See, he catches the ball in that lower quadrant, and your secondary defender can take a charge in the restricted area. See where Amari catches that ball. So when Bogans comes over, his feet are in the area, and he can take that charge there. So the referees got together, and now the Spurs have the ball once again.
Stoudamire's got his 4th foul. Moving inside. Ginobili comes up. Just 10 minutes ago, if it gets down to a close game, and it is right now, Phoenix on top by 1. The drive by Stoudamire, the foul on San Antonio. Bogans coming across him, As Amari was flying inside with 4:20 to play, Bogans picks up number 2.
See, this is the concern of the Phoenix Suns when you play the Spurs. You're playing this championship pedigree. 4 championships from Tim Duncan, 3 for Tony Parker, Manu Ginóbili. Spurs on a 13-0 run here. Now it's going to be important for Amari Stoudamire to stem the tide here and knock in a couple of these free throws.
Doug, 4 minutes ago, it was a 14-point lead for the Phoenix Suns, 94-80.
And this is what happens in series. You know, Greg Popovich could not find a group that he liked. All of a sudden, he goes to the bench to Bogans. He puts Hill out there with Parker and Ginóbili and plays 4 around 1. Duncan just sort of working the middle. And it has worked beautifully here for the Spurs to get themselves back in this game.
Ginóbili, Parker, Duncan, Hill, and Bogans for San Antonio. Bogans from Duncan over Richardson. Duncan gets it. Parker, Ginóbili. Parker a long 2 over Richardson. Rebound by Amari Stoudamire, number 12, with his 21 points. And here comes Steve Nash. He's got 30. Suns in this 4th quarter, coach. 2 of 10, 3 turnovers. Screen by Stoudamire. Hill into Bogans. And a foul. Keith Bogans will pick it up the clock at 3:38 to play. Number 3 on Bogans of the San Antonio Spurs. And with Hill at the free throw line and a contemplative Greg Popovich, we can tell you the national TV schedule looks this way. TNT tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, Atlanta, Orlando, and Utah and the Lakers. ESPN Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern time, Atlanta, Orlando, game 2. And then ABC this weekend. On Saturday, 8 o'clock Eastern time, the Lakers and Utah. Some big free throws for Hill, coach. And at the line tonight, 2 of 3 now with that hit.
Well, you start seeing the matchups now. Roger Mason is coming into the game. He's coming in for Bogans. He's going to give you better three-point shooting. Bogans gives you a little more toughness and size. And then Alvin Gentry comes in with Jared Dudley for Channing Frye, feeling he needs a little bit more defense on the perimeter because the Spurs have gone to a small lineup. So you're starting to see these coaches match up with one another. And he's going to have a little timeout here as the Suns are going to talk about it, up by 4.
Gotta keep the pace of the game up. We're doing a good job. Just keep the pace of the game up. Guys, we gotta play every play. Hey, he made a hustle play and the other guys didn't hustle down. We gotta, every play has gotta be the play.
That was 2 huddles ago. Alvin Gentry talking to his Phoenix Suns team. In this huddle, he said, guys, all I need from you is 3.5 minutes. I promise you, we're going to make a name for ourselves in playing defense. Then he pointed at Amari Stoudamire and said, it's got to start with you. You've got to slow down Tim. He's the one really killing us. Speaking of Tim Duncan, Kevin.
Thank you, Marty. They are the #1 offense in the NBA, the Phoenix Suns. But as Marty says, defense now has got to be their calling card, up by 4, 3.5 left in regulation. Activity and movement, Doug. That's been kind of the key word most of this season, especially the second half of the season for this Phoenix team.
Well, that's what you have to do, you know, Kevin. To be a good offensive team, you've got to have good spacing. You have player movement, ball movement. The ball, you find the open man side to side. And that's when any offensive team is at their best. Let's see what Greg Popovich is going to get coming out of this timeout. Richard Jefferson back in the game after being on the bench for a long time.
Jefferson comes in for Mason. The switch on defense. Here comes Ginóbili. It's Jefferson, Dudley defending. It's Tony Parker. Shot clock is down to 7. Working on Richardson. Tony Parker. Parker, Doug, off the bench in the beginning of the game. Starting the second half, has 21 points on 19 shots. Stoudamire and Duncan.
What a shot. Woo. Wow, just a muscle job that time. Duncan had his hand, looked like all over the ball, and Stoudamire just willed that shot in. What a great play.
That's the first hit for the Suns from the field in over 6 minutes. Ginóbili wheeling. Knocked out of bounds.
Kevin, it's interesting now. If you look where Richard Jefferson is on the floor on the weak side, normally the Spurs would have a guy behind the three-point line. Jefferson is not comfortable shooting the 3, so he's in a long 2, which makes rotation a lot easier to be able to help on the screen roll and get back to that guy in the corner who's looking to shoot a long 2 instead of a 3.
Jefferson only 1 of 4 in the playoffs, including the first round. Here is Parker. Duncan Ginóbili, shot clock at 4, defending Richardson. Rebound by Stoudamire. He's got 13 rebounds and 23 points.
Well, there's that some of the defense that Alvin Gentry wanted. That was a very good possession for the Suns.
Nash, Dudley, Grant Hill. Parker with the rebound. Into Dudley. Oh, and then a rebound for San Antonio. Richardson easily gets it for number 5 in that category for him.
Yeah, unfortunate that time for the Phoenix Suns because Parker got right on top of the basket, missed a pretty easy shot.
Ginobili's on Nash.
Look at the spacing of the Suns, all behind the three-point line.
Good point. This is Nash. It is a foul. It's on Steve Nash. It is his 3rd personal foul. Playing with a bad right hip. Looks pretty spry tonight in 35 minutes, 30 points. Ginóbili. Phoenix has a foul to give. This is Hill from outside. Dudley with the rebound. George Hill 2 of 7.
Now those are the threes he hit against Dallas. He hit those big threes against Dallas tonight. It just wasn't there for him.
The shooting in the 4th quarter. Nash, Hill, Richardson for 3.
This is their favorite play. They call this short. It's a screen roll. They throw it to Grant Hill. He finds opposite side. That's either Channing Frye or Jason Richardson. This time it's Jason Richardson, the X factor. He has 25. The last 10 times he's done that, they have won. Is he going to make it 11 here tonight?
We're back in Phoenix, Arizona, revisiting the cold, hard facts presented by Coors Light.
Well, we talked about the Suns winning this game tonight for their psyche, what it would do. Looks like they're going to protect home court here tonight. Pace of the game, 30-point quarters tonight. They get off to a great start. Steve Nash, 31 in that first quarter for the Suns. How about the screen roll game? So Amari Stoudamire, 23 points, 16 in the paint. Nash has 30, 10 to 6. He has 16 in the paint. And then the X factor, Jason Richardson with that big 3. Will that be enough to close it out?
Like you said, 10 straight. When he's hit that mark, Doug, you're all over it. Closing out quarters has been important, too, for the Suns in this game. Second quarter, they were +6. Third quarter, they were +10. So far, they're +7 in the 4th. You can see the run in over 3 minutes. Dudley watching Parker. Hill is all over Ginóbili. A screen. Parker finds it. Pippen drives inside with a Phoenix foul. 1:11 to play. Stoudamire was in there as the line of defense and picks up his 5th. Stoudamire, Hill, Dudley, and Richardson, the Phoenix 5. Duncan, Ginóbili, Hill, Parker, and Jefferson, the San Antonio Spurs. 5. Tony Parker will be at the free throw line. And Doug tonight, 101, 21 points overall and 20 shots.
Well, again, this will only be the 7th and 8th free throw of the second half for the San Antonio Spurs. Alvin Gentry told his team they were fouling too much at halftime. They've made the adjustments. We talk about the Phoenix Suns and their shooting. When they shoot 45% or better in the playoffs, they continue to win tonight. They're going to be 5-0 as tonight they're shooting over 50%. They're the #1 shooting team in the league, #1 behind the three-point line. They're a great free throw shooting team. So when they play good defense, the way they shoot the ball, they are very tough to beat.
That was a historic three-point percentage, too, this season. Second best ever. 41, as you mentioned. And here's Nash. Parker defending. Screened by Stoudamire. Parker sticks right with it. Shot clock is down to 6. This is Jefferson on Hill. Grant Hill puts in his first field goal since 11:28 left in the first quarter. He hit the first field goal of the game for the Phoenix Suns. A big one right there. Duncan a screen. Ginóbili driving inside. Hill was taken out. Ginóbili flies inside, and he's got 27 to lead San Antonio. Nash behind him was Hill, who draws the foul. He's got 4.
And you foul Steve Nash, you might as well give him 2 points because he's a 90% shooter. But look at Grant Hill gets hit with a screen by Tim Duncan. Ginóbili gets all the way to the paint. But again, Kevin, the spacing on the floor for the Spurs is so different. They do not have that three-point shooting. Used to be Bruce Bowen out there knocking down shots, Robert Horry, some of these guys shooting those threes, and they are not nearly as good a three-point shooting team, so their spacing isn't quite as good on the floor, and you can help a little bit more on Duncan and get back.
We'll be back here on Wednesday for Game 2. Game 3 will be on ESPN. Doug and I will be in San Antonio on Mother's Day. I'll take you through the first 4 games. Nash again. Steve Nash, 32 points, 10 assists, 4 of 4 from the line in 36 minutes. Parker, the acceleration. Foul! Count it. He'll go to the line. Tony Parker, 25 points. He and Nash have put on an outstanding offensive show tonight.
And the big question to me is going to be, as we see Tony Parker go away from the screen and reject it, they call the pushing foul there on Jason Richardson. Looked like he might have just pushed him. See if he gets his hand right there on his hip just a little bit. And the foul call, but will Greg Popovich start Tony Parker in Game 2? Will we see that adjustment to help get them maybe off to a better start? George Hill did not have a good game tonight against Steve Nash to start the game. Nash got off to a great start on all those pick and rolls, so as the chess game will start here in the playoffs, once you lose a game, you start trying to make some different decisions, and we'll see what Pop's going to do for Game 2.
Parker has 9 in the quarter for San Antonio, trailing by 5. Half-minute regulation. Phoenix on top by 5. They've led by as many as 14. Coming up next inside the NBA, EJ, the Jet, Sir Charles. Analysis and post-game reaction from tonight's 2 playoff games. And tomorrow night, playoff action continues on TNT. Atlanta, Orlando, Game 1. Utah, Lakers, Game 2. Coverage 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Just because something worked in the first series doesn't mean it's going to necessarily be carried over to the second.
No, you got to make adjustments based on personnel. Ginóbili's going to trip Nash. He's going to go down, and he'll pop up and shoot his 2 free throws. But that's how every series changes. You know, you had in the first series, you had a Dirk Nowitzki, and what you had to do with a guy like that, you didn't see as much screen roll with a Jason Kidd as you're seeing with Steve Nash. And as I said before, when this series is over, the team that is going to be able to do the best job with their screen roll defense, either corralling Steve Nash with Amari Stoudamire rolling and those three-point shooting, and for the Suns, you've got Ginóbili, you've got Parker running off Duncan, all those screens. Whichever team can find a way to play the screen roll the best, I think is going to win this series. But just a big win here tonight for the Suns if they can hold on. Just for their psyche, Kevin, to win Game 1. The last 2 times they've had home court against the Spurs and had the better record, the Spurs have won Game 1 and gone on to win the series.
In the regular season, Phoenix beat San Antonio 2 out of 3 times. Nash hits the back end of 2. The lead is 6. Timeout San Antonio. Suns went into the penalty at 8-10. They've gone 12 of 14 from the free throw line in the pressure-packed 4th quarter tonight. Doug, in that first series for the San Antonio Spurs, they faced Jason Kidd. Now in this series, they've got Steve Nash. Pretty daunting task for even an experienced team like the San Antonio Spurs.
Well, you know, we heard Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith, Ernie Johnson talking tonight to Chris Paul in the studio. And it's how this is a point guard driven league now. And you can see tonight Steve Nash, the impact he's had on his team. Tony Parker, when he came in, the minutes he's played. 2 brilliant point guards here tonight in a league full of great point guards.
George Hill has 9. Stoudamire knocks it out of bounds. 19 seconds on the shot clock, and you see just under 24 to play in regulation. Greg Popovich is so good at matchups. I'll be dying to see what he does for Game 2. He'll change things up in the adjustments he'll make.
Well, remember they lost Game 1 in Dallas, and he told me, we had reading a lot of stuff. He said, I had guys play like a bunch of dogs tonight. Those guys came out and played a lot better in Game 2 and 1 to steal the home court.
Well, the 3-point shot, Doug, has disappeared for San Antonio in this 4th quarter. 1 of 8 from beyond the arc for the Spurs in the 4th. The fans to their feet, they can smell a win. You've said it all night as the foul goes on McDyess for the 2nd time. The psyche of the team, the psyche of the fans, battling the demons from playoffs past between these two franchises.
Now, if you're the Phoenix Suns, you say you got to get real greedy and you got to hold home court, get a decisive 2-0 lead. And if you're the San Antonio Spurs, you know you're coming in game 2 to try to get a split and go home. And if you've done that, regardless of what's happened here tonight, you're the Spurs, you go home with the home court. You have to feel very good about yourself. They just went home in the last series, beat the Dallas Mavericks, who had the best road record in the NBA, and the Mavs were not able to beat them on their court. So that's why it's so important for the Phoenix Suns to hold home court.
Tony Parker racing the other way for the San Antonio Spurs. This is a Hill 3. Nash defending. Manu Ginóbili cannot get it in. Dudley has the ball. Foul called on Ginóbili. Just under 8 to play. Well, the 100-point mark, too, has been a line of demarcation for San Antonio. When they've held their opponents in this postseason under 100, they've won. When they've allowed them more than 100, they've lost.
That's that pace of the game that we talk about. And I think when Greg Popovich looks at it as transition defense, we talked about that, Kevin. 27 fast break points tonight for the Phoenix Suns. I just don't think they're going to be able to give them that many fast break points. And I think Greg Popovich will go back with his coaches. They're going to look at this, figure where some of those points came. But a big part of those came in that one run, Kevin, when the Spurs had taken that 3-point lead and the Suns went on that run to push it to a 10-point game. Most of that was done in transition, shooting threes and getting to the basket and getting some easy baskets.
It's Parker. Hill. The Phoenix Suns will go up 1-0 over San Antonio as Popovich waves to his former assistant Alvin Gentry, now the head coach of Phoenix. Tim Duncan tonight, 8 of 15 with 20 points and 11 rebounds. Ginóbili had 27 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Amari Stoudamire tonight with 23. Richardson had 27. They are standing by with our Marty Snyder.
Yeah, isn't that amazing, Kevin? 50 points for the Suns between these two guys. Amari, I don't know how many times you guys were up 14. They made several runs, but every time you staved it off. How did you guys do that?
Yeah, well, we played great defense out there. You know, I think we get a few stops, we're able to get into our offense a lot faster. We got to go on offensively. Defensively, we did a phenomenal job out there, so I think that's why we kept the lead.
How many times did Alvin preach pace and also defense in huddles tonight? I lost count.
Yeah, that was the method tonight. You know, keeping our pace offensively and make sure we get stops defensively. Rebounding the ball, keeping those guys off the boards was another key for us.
Jason, a huge 3 for you late in the game. How big was this first game win for the psyche for the Suns team?
It was huge for us. Coming in here, we got a home court advantage. We want to keep that. We can't let them get away with a home court win here.
Their small ball really seemed to hurt you guys. Would you be surprised if Tony Parker doesn't start game 2?
Yeah, it really hurt us. We got to find a way to slow him and Manu down. They did a great job, but we came back and got some stops at the end.
All right, half a century points for these guys tonight, Kevin.
They shot 52% from the field. They had 9 more points beyond the 3-point arc. They out-rebounded San Antonio tonight, Doug. A terrific game 1.
Yeah, I can't wait for game 2 because the Spurs know they got to come in here and find a way to get a split.
We'll see you Wednesday. Our producer, Scott Cockrell. Our director, Lonnie Dale. Our associate directors, Bert Bondi and Lori Brooks. Special thanks to Jeff Paris, Sammy Polis, and Pat McGrath. Kevin Harlan for Doug Collins and Marty Snyder saying goodnight from Phoenix, sending you to Atlanta and inside the NBA with Ernie Johnson.